I'm currently on track to be a millionaire in 25 years. Now, I'm 25 right now, so if you do the math, that means that I'd hit a millionaire by 50. How? Well, right now I have $20,000 in my investment account, and I add another $1,000 every month. If I keep doing that and hit an average annual return of about 8%, then boom, I'd have $1 million by 50 years old. Now, hearing that, you might be thinking one of two things. You might either be thinking, wow, that's great. I don't know if I could ever hit that. Or on the other side, you might be thinking, 25 years. Isn't that a long time?
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Both of those thoughts can be right depending on your perspective. And realistically, most people aren't millionaires. There's about 20 million millionaires in the United States and just under 2 million millionaires in Canada. Now, even though those numbers might sound good, that's only 5 to 6% of the country's population. Now let's back up for a second. When I say the word millionaire, what are you picturing? Is it big homes, expensive cars, buying everything you want? Because that person could be a millionaire, but they also might not be. And it's because you can't see a millionaire. It's not about what you spend. What it is when your net worth is $1 million or more. Or if everything that you own is $1 million or more in value than everything that you owe. So if you have a lot of things, but you're in a lot of debt, especially a lot of consumer debt, you're probably not a millionaire. There's a lot of different factors working against people when it comes to growing your net worth and getting to that millionaire status. It's not easy in general, and especially not when we're working within a financial system that's not designed for everyone to succeed. But there are steps that you can take to get there. And today we're gonna be going over those steps, and no, not the ones that tell you how to buy all the different expensive things in life, but the ones that get you to a place of financial security where you'll have the luxury and freedom of time, whether that's 25 years from now or sooner. So let's get into those steps.
Okay, so there's a few main things that you'll likely need to do in order to become a millionaire. Investing. But first, let's talk about how you'll want to get control of your current financial situation before you do anything else. Now, in general, a lot of people tend to get ahead of themselves. Either they feel like they're never gonna make it, they're never gonna be a millionaire, they'll never have the money for whatever reason. So instead, they start looking for, these secrets, the get rich quick schemes, these different opportunities, putting their money into the lottery, investing in penny stocks, risky NFTs, basically anything that they think is gonna work. Or maybe you feel confident that you're gonna be a millionaire, but you kind of wanna skip over those initial steps and just jump right into investing. Well, whichever side you're coming in from, understanding your current financial situation before you get into that future planning and what's gonna happen then is super, super important. Now, for anyone who does have debt, you know that it can be sometimes mentally straining, and just having that hang over you can kind of suck. But once again, this is where having a plan in place actually comes in handy. Now, for example, I was able to pay off $45,000 in student loan debt in the span of 2.5 years. And the only way that I was able to do this was because I made a plan and I followed it. Now, you don't have to pay off all of your debt at once, kind of like what I did first. But honestly, I felt super free once I was done. And honestly, I was still young, right? Like I was still 25 years old. I feel like a lot of people assume that if you elect to pay off your debt first, you're gonna be really old once you pay it off. But once you have your plan in place, you're honestly good to go. And I think a really great rule of thumb for people who are gonna go that route is at the least pay off your high interest rate debt first, right? So that means anything that has an interest rate of over 7%. Now, the reason we say 7% and the theory behind this is that in the short term in the markets, it can be really hard to earn a return of over 7%. So either pay off all of your debt first, or at least your high interest rate ones. Now, your spending habits, those are also key because lifestyle creep, like we've said time and time again, is super, super real. Like what Steph said earlier, if you're making $1 million, but you're also spending $1 million, you're not a millionaire. So you have to get into the habit of not never spending, but being in control and knowing what you're spending on. Your habits aren't going to magically change as you make more money. And if you're someone who's really keen on controlling your spending habits, then a budget has to be something you consider. Now, if growing your net worth is also one of your goals, then maximizing each paycheck and how much you actually keep from each paycheck has to be at top of mind. Now, a really quick tip here is to automate your payments to yourself. So this means automating your debt repayment and transferring cash into your emergency fund. So like we always say, rule of thumb is 6+ months of readily available cash that can be used in case of an emergency whenever that happens. Now, key to this is making sure that all of this is happening in the background without you even knowing it. What's cool about you doing this and setting this up is that this one-time setup basically ensures and makes sure that you're hitting all of your goals. Now, when it comes to our accounts, Steph and I use our checking accounts as our money hub. So this is where money gets deposited, but it's also where money leaves. All of this might sound super simple, but think about it this way. How many times have you told yourself that you'll start saving next month or $100 from the next paycheck? And then by the time that rolls around, you've already spent it all, and then you realize when it's too late that you have no more money left over to save. Get that money automatically saved and you won't have to worry about it.
So now you're past the basics. You've paid off your debt, or at least your high interest debt. Your emergency fund is full. It's ready to go if you need it. You know what your spending habits look like. All of that's taken care of. And now it's time to invest. Now this is the fun part, because it's definitely what we personally feel is it's going to be able to bring us to being millionaires in the future. Now, if you're only going to take 2 things away from this video, these are the most important things that I want you to keep in mind. One is that time spent investing, so the amount of time you're able to invest for, is really important. And the other one is that how much money you're able to invest on a consistent basis, that's going to determine how quickly you're able to grow your net worth. Now, something I really want to emphasize here is that investing is something that can really help grow your net worth and bring you to a millionaire status sooner, but at the same time, you don't need to be an expert investor to get started. I think this is something that can really stop people from investing at all in the first place. It's kind of one of 2 things. Either they think that they don't need to be investing, maybe they haven't been told, or they just don't think it's necessary for them. And the other thing is that people feel like they need to be an expert to get started and they just don't know enough to actually do it. Now, I can really resonate with this because when I first started investing, I felt like I had no clue what I was doing. It scared me. I felt like I just wasn't smart in that area. And at the same time, I still got started. And I'm really glad I did because I was able to grow my confidence over time. I feel very comfortable talking about and investing my money now. And I'm so glad I still got started back then. So again, get started now and actively learn and grow your knowledge over time. Now, obviously, actually getting started and making yourself take that first step is still easier said than done. But there is a simple way of investing that's proven to perform well in the long term, and that's passively investing in funds that track the market. Now, yes, when I say the market, I'm talking about the stock market, and we're talking about investing in the stock market first because you have the option of investing passively, which means not very hands-on, but at the same time still seeing those strong, solid returns over time. Now, we just did a video really talking about exactly what it means to passively invest in funds for the long term, but at a high level, investing in index funds and specifically ETFs is what we've chosen to invest in because we're able to still get a good investment and invest in the market, but without having to do a lot of research on stocks, for example, and be more hands-on. Now, obviously investing in that way is fine too. That's definitely an option, but we're gonna keep it simple for this video. So let's say that you wanted to invest in the total US stock market, which you can do by buying an ETF called VTI. Now that's just one company's name for it. The company is Vanguard. There's also a similar one called ITOT, which is BlackRock's version. Now, let's go with the example of VTI. This strategy would mean that you put a set amount of money on a regular basis into this one fund that contains a tiny little piece of every single company listed on the US stock market for a long period of time. Now, since VTI was created, since the fund was established, it's gotten an average annual return of 8%, just like my example at the beginning. Now, obviously, some years are going to be a little bit higher of a return, some years are going to be a little bit lower, but that's about the average return that you could see by investing in this one fund. Now, before we talk about how everything I just said will help you reach that millionaire net worth specifically, we've got to talk about something else that everyone who has their financial life together and who is on the way to reaching that millionaire status does, which is file their taxes, ideally with a low or no cost option like Wealthsimple Tax. Now, you guys know we talk about Wealthsimple all the time on this channel. They're the platform that I use to invest my money, and they're sponsoring today's video because we're getting pretty close to this year's tax filing deadline. Now, what's great about Wealthsimple Tax is that it's free and it lets you file your taxes by yourself. Now, seriously, if just the sound of doing it by yourself sounds intimidating to you, you can do it with this platform. They help you by autofilling your information for you, by pulling your investment information and your tax slips from CRA and Revenue Quebec, and they also help you get your maximum refund by including any deductions you might be eligible for. Also, what's new this year if you're a crypto trader is that Wealthsimple Tax will calculate your capital gains for up to 500 different transactions across multiple different exchanges and wallets to make it as easy and simple as possible for you. Now, if you use our link in the description box to sign up, you'll get $15 paid to you, and you'll be entered for a chance to win $5,000 too. So make sure you check that out down below, and let's get back into talking about how investing can help grow your net worth.
So now you know about investing in index funds and ETFs, and honestly, once again, they're really great because they allow you to invest consistently over the long term. And once again, this is what me and Steph do, right? So for her, she uses her robo-advisor, which invests for her, and I buy a one fund solution, which I invest in every single month consistently, and it basically just takes care of the rest for me. Now, the next thing for you to know about is what accounts you should actually be buying those investments within. So for us, we invest in and think you should consider investing in tax advantaged accounts first. So this includes the TFSA or the Roth IRA, or the IRA and the RRSP. Now, what's great about these accounts is that, they offer you really great tax breaks, right? And once you've invested a solid amount of money and you hit that maximum amount that you're allowed to invest in within these tax advantaged accounts, at that point, then you can move on to the taxable accounts. The real key takeaway here is that you can get started with investing now and grow your knowledge as time progresses. That's basically what we've done, and that's what we continue to do. Now, what we don't want to happen is for you to be spending a whole bunch of money on fees while you're learning. I mean, if you really think about it, like we've talked about before, there's so many low-cost options, and that's us talking from a platform perspective and also from an account perspective, right? Like, you don't have to go straight into the taxable accounts when you can use your tax advantage accounts first. Now, a really important question that you're probably having at this point is why we keep stressing starting early. Now, the reason we keep stressing that so much is because time does most of the work for you. And the reason time does most of the work for you is because of this little known thing called compound interest. When we're talking about compound interest, you can picture it like this. So when you invest your money, you earn money from that money that you initially invested. Now, what do you do with that money that you earned? If you were to reinvest that money back into your investments to buy more investments, and you were to continue doing that, that would be your money compounding, right? And growing on top of itself, basically. Now, if you continue to do this for years and years down the line, eventually what you're gonna see is exponential growth at some point. So to give you a quick example, let's say you have $1,000 and it grows at 5%. At the end of year one, you're gonna have 1,050, right? At the end of year two, because you reinvested that money, that $50 that you earned, you're not just gonna be earning on the $1,000 initially, it's gonna be earning on the $1,050. So at the end of year two, instead of just having an additional $50, you're gonna have an additional $5,250, right? So now if you picture that, at scale, if you picture that continuing to happen for years and years down the line, honestly, that makes a really big dent, right? At the end of the day, even with us explaining all of this, it can still feel like it's not worthwhile because the numbers are so small. But, like we said before, it's not really about that, instant gratification where you're seeing the numbers climb really, really quickly. Time has to do the work. You have to allow time to continuously do the work. And that's what deters a lot of people from being consistent.
Now, everything we just covered is great for getting to that $1 million plus mark sometime in your 50s or just in a longer term time horizon, depending on what age you are when you start. Now, I have to mention that in itself is a huge accomplishment because, again, most people aren't millionaires and most people aren't ever going to be millionaires. So whatever age you hit that by or you're on track to hit that by, that's great within itself. But let's say you are one of those people that does want to hit it a bit sooner. We can definitely relate to that. Like I said at the beginning, I'm currently on track to hit that millionaire point by 50 years old, but we do definitely want to get there a lot sooner, and we've talked about that on here before. Now, one of the best ways you can make that happen and what we're aiming for is growing your income so that we have more money to actually dump into our investments now. So remember, the more that you can put in for a longer period of time, the more your money's gonna grow and you're gonna hit that point sooner. So if we break that down in an example, let's say I still had my same $20,000 right now, but instead of investing $1,000 per month, I invested $3,000 per month with that 8% average return. In that example, I'd hit that millionaire point in 15 years instead. That's obviously a lot sooner, and that's what we're focused on right now, which is spending a lot of our time growing our income so that we'll have more money to dump into our investments.
All right, guys, that's a wrap on this video. Now you know the steps, and once again, these are the exact steps that we're using, so let's get it. And if you haven't already done your taxes, make sure you get on that. This is your reminder. And if you're gonna be doing your taxes, make sure you use the link down below for Wealthsimple Tax. Remember, you can be entered, you have that chance to be entered to win $5,000. So yeah, make sure you get on that. And huge shout out to Wealthsimple for working with us on this video as usual. And if you haven't seen any of our previous videos, you already know what's up, you know the vibes. Make sure you check them out next door. We will be back. You know what's up. I already said you know the vibes. So let's go.